Good afternoon. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okon. Today I'm going to be talking about Kenya. Kenya is a country in East Africa. East Africa obviously is Africa. Africa is a continent. The second biggest continent in the world, the second largest by area, by size of the geographical area, also the poorest continent in the world. Um, this is actually because Africa is a developing continent, and East Africa is part of Africa, also a developing world. Kenya is one of the countries in East Africa. I'm going to look at Kenya today in relation to the cost of living crisis, which I have been talking about for the last 10 months, because the cost of living is, in my view, the most important topic today. It actually helps us to understand the way global economy, also economies in countries like Kenya operate, and the way capitalism as an economic system affect the way people actually grow wealth, and how people actually invest in science, technology, engineering, how in countries and including governments running the world, running countries and continents of the world, how the global economic system operate. We bring all this to view in the process of trying to understand the cost of living as a crisis, which is actually a very serious matter. Is the beginning of the things to come. So when we actually examine topics relating to the cost of living, whether directly or indirectly, such as I'm going to demonstrate, if you have watched my video previously, you probably are aware of the format of my presentation, the kind of content of my material. You're probably aware of. I will continue on that discourse until we begin to move on to doing something similar. Regardless of what topic I'm going to discuss, I will also be touching on the cost of living crisis. It may not be directly the cost of living crisis. The cost of living crisis is now being looked at because it's going to be here for a while, and it's going to really impact on housing, food, energy, healthcare, and social welfare like employment, and access to justice, like justice when you not getting support if you are working for living. And I've said many times, I would be repeating this point, that if you work for a living, then you're poor, because the way experts define poverty is not really adequate, in my opinion, because somebody working for a living is already poor, because they may be earning lots of money as employee, but the fact that they don't really own their businesses is testimony that they are actually excluded from the wealth of the world. What they do with the money earned is to pay taxes, and also to pay for other goods and services, essential, especially food, energy, water, housing, transportation, including going on holiday. Or going on holiday may not be an essential, really, but it is, given the modern society being very stressful. Because if you go on holiday, you actually invest in your health and welfare and well-being as well, and that is actually important. You need to be regarded as part of an essential, because there's a lot of mental health issues nowadays, like especially in the developed world, but also in Africa, including Kenya. Kenya is actually one of the most developed countries in Africa. In many ways, also one is extremely developed, comparable to countries of the world. But if you go to Kenya, or even do a study of a survey of Kenya, the people of Kenya, the difference between those who have a lot of money and those who are well is really shocking. And the same thing with the rest of Africa, in different countries like Burundi, Rwanda, even Rwanda, you find some of the wealthiest people in Africa, and some of really, really the most the poorest people in Africa also. And even if you look at poverty in Africa, you will be shocked. and Kenya and South Africa, Nigeria, all these countries are some of the wealthiest people on the earth, but also some of the poorest people in the world. That's what I'm trying to look at. And my reasoning is that capitalism has gone very, very bad, and there has been a lot of violence. Violence is produced when we fail to value humanity and in not understanding our cultural economy. Cultural economy relates to humanity as opposed to developmental economy, which is including wealth, technology, science, engineering, and all the wealth of the world. Both are actually important components of progress, but my argument has been to become more peaceful societies. We need to focus as a priority more on humanity, on the cultural component of progress. And that's what I've been trying to actually discuss in relation to the cost of living, which is fundamentally caused by poverty. Poverty for affecting nearly 90% of the global population, the same in Kenya. You work for a living, whether you are actually lower or middle class, you have to pay tax, you have to work for a living, you don't own anything. If you own it, actually, you probably own it through the bank. If you borrow, and you're a small and medium business, you probably also be classed as a working class, because you're poor, because you have to really rely on borrowing money from the financial institution. In other words, if you don't work, if you don't borrow money, including borrowing to buy property or housing or for homes, you will be homeless, you will be penniless, you won't have money, you won't have a means of survival. If you don't have employment, employment is the primary source of income for ordinary households, ordinary people of the world, 90%, 95%. If you have to leave because you have to work because you have to leave, then you are poor by definition. I keep repeating this point over and over because people should not lose track of that fundamental point. And I'll leave a comment below. And if you have subscribed, thank you so much. Continue supporting this channel. And watch the videos, click notification bell, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. And let us continue getting out this message out, and also building these facilities. And I'm going to go through certain material. If you have not watched the rest of my video, please watch it, because they are quite similar in approach at the moment. And I'm also looking to improve every day the way the videos are edited. They are utterly edited. It's like every day I record a video, it's like I'm doing a live videoing, because I don't really edit anything. I just post whatever I produce. It's a very risky exercise, and I take a lot of risk. And I'm so grateful for the people who have actually so far subscribed, people who have been watching and continue watching, continue sharing with family and friends, and continue giving feedback, especially positive feedback. If it is something negative, you try to be constructive and let me know what the problems are, what resolve such a problem. It's been a very major privilege being part of this family, YouTube family. I spend a lot more time watching other people's videos than watching of mine, because other videos are actually more entertaining than mine. And mine, at the moment, we are seeking to see if I can inject any modicum of entertainment. It would be really nice. But the cost of living is a serious subject, and for now you need to bear with me and really pay attention, because it's intense. I'm looking also at policy context and the legal context. These are no easy subjects. They are really, really complex, and I've had to deal with topics which I'm not even an expert. So because of your support and the support of the system of YouTubing, and I'm determined to carry on. We'll look at Kenya. And we're going to look at different dimensions of Kenya. I'm so excited looking at Kenya. I come from Uganda, and Uganda is actually neighbor with Kenya. We are East African countries, and the location, the coordinates of Kenya is 1 degree north, 38 degrees north east, That is the location 1 degree north and 38 degrees north. If you're Kenyan, leave a comment below and let me know how you feel about somebody talking about your country. The name of the country of Kenya is actually called the Republic of Kenya. In Swahili, Jamhuri ya Kenya in Swahili. Leave a comment below if you speak Swahili. I used to speak Swahili, but now I've lost the knowledge because I've been living in Europe for so long. Jamhuri ya Kenya. That is really beautiful. I love Kiswahili. If you know Kiswahili, leave a comment below how you feel about Kiswahili as a language, because now East African leaders are now trying to make Kiswahili a national language taught in every school. I actually admire Kenya for teaching Kiswahili in schools, and also Tanzania teaching concurrently the speaking of Kiswahili in the village, unlike our country in Uganda. Only the business people and the military speak Kiswahili. And let's say the security forces, the police, prison, and the army. And no more people hardly speak Swahili in Uganda, which is really a major problem. The flag of Kenya is composed of the colors. I always talk about the colors. It's easier to talk about the color of the flag. Yeah, it's actually black at the top, red in the middle, and then green at the bottom. It's a very beautiful flag, and there's a shield in the middle with beautiful color, green, white, and and black, and they are also spears. Beautiful. Africa is so beautiful, and East Africa in particular is probably among the most beautiful countries in the world. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of feel so privileged being an East African. So welcome to this channel and enjoy the topic of Kenya. Kenya is a fantastic area to visit. It's a leading tourism center countries of the world. Certainly one of the leading in Africa. Certainly leading in East Africa. And it has also something called coat of arms. Leave a comment below if you know what coat of arms is. It's something insignia. It's like a signature. It's a part of the identity of the country. And there's also a shield, spear, and 2 lions at the opposite end. Beautiful golden and different colors. The coloring sometimes a part of the coloring actually reflects the coloring of the flag, which is a very good motto, Arambe. That is in Kiswahili, Arambe, which in English, let us all pull together, which is a call for unity. If you come from Africa, you will realize very quickly that the need for unity is fundamental, especially to eradicate issues to things like poverty, which if Africa could really materialize, if they could achieve unity at some level, there would be a reduction of poverty in a country like Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and other parts of Africa. Because people united are always people valuing humanity, which is what I talk of in terms of the cultural economy. And Africa needs to pay a lot of attention on cultural economy. Because with that, we get rid of poverty. Poverty is the #1 cause of global conflict. And the failure of peace, even in countries like the Middle East. Now we have Israel fighting with Hamas. It's a tragic story. Is a detrimental commentary on the globe. And we say, and we say, let us all pull together. Let's unite. That is the motto of Kenya, Arambe, in Kiswahili. So our national anthem of Kenya, E Mungu Nguvu Zetu. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly because I can hardly read Kiswahili. And if you know Kiswahili, leave a comment below. E Mungu Nguvu Zetu. Oh God of all creation. In English, Oh God of all creation. That is the main title, the main outlook. E Mungu Nguvu, Mungu Nguvu Yetu. I think that is how to pronounce it in Kiswahili. I love Kiswahili, like I said. capital of Kenya is Nairobi. For those who travel in Africa can hardly miss Nairobi. It's one of the leading capitals, cities in Africa, and in many ways also one of the most beautiful in the world. Africa, when it is actually cities and big towns are as beautiful as anywhere else, apart more beautiful, because naturally Africa is such a beautiful country. Such a privilege to be in Africa. And I'm talking about Kenya. The location of Nairobi is actually 1 degrees, 1 degrees and 16 inches. What do you call it? 16 feet south, and 36 degrees and 48. Let's say inches. I don't really know the reading of referencing. This is a GCSE regional geography. So that's the location of Nairobi. You can actually look for that referencing yourself. The language, the official languages, actually Kiswahili and English. A national language is Kiswahili, which is actually what East African countries are trying to make Swahili, including in Uganda, but there appears to be political reluctance to reintegrate within the East African community because of political reasons. Some actually African countries are extremely dictatorial, too dictatorial to give up national power. But with time, the uniting of East Africa is a matter of time, and also of Africa and the globe. So people who still cling to sovereignty should actually start preparing early, because globalization is upon us, and globalization is promoting capitalism, and so we need to really look at the cost of living crisis as a symptom of the market economy, and also the increasingly prevalent poverty among the many, and the concentrating of wealth among the few of the world, and this is a problem creating the cost of living crisis. So the ethnic group, or the ethnic groups of Kenya, as of 2019, the census carried out in 2019, 17.13% Kikuyu, 14.35% Luya, 13.37% Kalenjin, and 10.65% Luo. The Luo in Kenya, actually the largest single concentration of the Luo group, also in Uganda and South Sudan and other parts of the world. So we have the 9.81%, the Kamba, 5.85%, Somali, 5.68%, Kisii, 5.23%, Mijikenda, 4.15% Meru, and 13.7% other ethnic communities. Leave a comment below if you're from Kenya, or if you know something about Kenya, and if you are from any of the ethnical groups in Kenya. We'll talk about religion in Kenya. 85.5% are Christianity, and of these, 60.8% are Protestants, and 20.6% are Catholics, and 4.1% are other Christian communities. 10.9% is Islam, 1.6% has no religion, 0.7% traditional faith, and 1.3% other faith. If you are from Kenya, if you are a national of Kenya, you are referred to as Kenyan. The government of Kenya is actually a unitary presidential republic, and the president of Uganda is actually William Ruto. And leave a comment below if you know William Ruto. If you are from Africa or East Africa, Kenya is a very popular country in Africa, especially in East Africa. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. I repeat that. The deputy president, the vice president, in many ways, Rigathi Gachagua. The Senate Speaker is Amason Kingi. Senate is an equivalent of parliament. So you can assembly speaker is Moses Wetangula. Now, when it is assembly, probably also parliament, perhaps also a part of actually the parliament structure. You know, I think it's a bicameral system, something fine in most countries of the world. So the Chief Justice actually Martha Koome, legislature, which is parliament, which is also interesting, is actually the upper house Senate, the lower house the National Assembly, like I said before. Uganda got its independence from the United Kingdom. The Dominion, which is actually the rule, they got independence from the rule of under rule of the United Kingdom on the 12th of December 1963, and they became a republic on the 12th of December 1964. The current constitution was set on the 27th of August 2010. The area of Kenya, the total area is actually 580,367 square kilometer and 224.081 square kilometer square miles. The water area in percentage is 2.3%. So 2.3% of Kenya is covered by water. That is a lot of water. Population of Kenya, 2023 estimate, which is very current, is 51,526,000. The 28th in the world. They're okay. 2019 census is 47,564,296. The density of population per square kilometer and miles, respectively, 82 people per square mile, a kilometer, an equivalent of 212.4 square miles, 124th in terms of density. GDP PPP total is as of 2023 estimate 338.964 billion US dollars, 66 in the world. So fairly, really, Kenya is doing fairly okay. Per capita income is 6,576 to 140. So it's good for Kenya. But you see, the problem with capitalism, your money may look good, but the cost of living will always be lurking around the corner. If it is a crisis, I mean, people, even though they may look rich, but they will necessarily be very poor. And that's why it's so important to do a study of the cost of living crisis, because the cost of living is so convenient to study, because it relates to capitalism. It relates to how wealth is allocated between the rich and the poor. The rich are actually, or consistently across the globe, the rich are maybe between 10 and 20%. And that leaves the rest of the world outside wealth. But the necessity is illustrated by the cost of living crisis is to get people out of poverty globally, especially in Kenya. If you go to the slums of Kenya, you will be shocked at the level of poverty. And that is not necessary. That's the form of political violence and also failure in a country. And African governments, including Kenyan government, are so sensitive to criticism. So if a minister or a president will watch this video, they should really reflect on their cultural alertness in terms of valuing humanity. Because if you value people, you do everything to get your people out of poverty. Let's speak of Africa and Kenya. I understand the problem now is global. Kenya alone may fail to actually do what you want to do because it's controlled by Europe, even powerful, one of the most powerful nations in the world, which is actually the European Union and the European countries, including America, the Western empires. They control Africa, including Israel in the Middle East, is also a very powerful nation in controlling Africa, and for political reasons. And this is actually undermining global peace and keeping people using wealth as a weapon of oppression by the West, also by capitalists generally in Africa, in Kenya, is a major problem which should be actually undone by learning a little bit of literacy culturally, cultural literacy as such, to learn to put a bit more value on humanity. And that is, to my mind, is the main vehicle to producing peace more than anything else. And the cost of living is an opportunity for us to pay attention to these functions and work at policy and also strategic and all any other elements of society to try and bring about justice. The first process of justice is to get global population out of poverty. It is doable within 10 years or 20, 50 years, but the countries of the world have to function together, especially those who fund Africa and Kenya, the IMF and the World Bank in Europe. They are to work with African leaders, Kenyan leaders, to support poor people, to get them out of poverty. And this is also the case in any other part of the world, including Europe, the West, and the East. So let us now move and see the total per capita, which is in Kenya, 112.749 billion, the 66th in the world. I'll leave a comment below if you can interpret that more better than me to explain the practical significance. Per capita also 2 point total per capita, like I said, is the total GDP, so to speak, is 112. GDP nominal. That's what I was talking about in Kenya. GDP nominal in 2023 estimate total is 112.749 billion, making Kenya the 66th in the world, and also per capita in relate to individual income 2,189, making Kenya 147th in the world. So the something called the Gini of 2021 is at 8.7%, medium HDI 2021 is 0.579, medium 152nd. Leave a comment below if you understand the significance of those factors. Currency of Kenya is shillings, Kenyan shillings, KES. The time zone is UTC +3 East African time. The date format is the day, month, and year AD. Driving side to the left, the same with Uganda and the United Kingdom. The calling code is in mobile and telephone is +254. Uganda is 256. ISO 3166 KE, that is Kenya, KE. The code is KE. Internet TLD is .ke. You will comment below if you are interested in going into Kenya, and leave a comment below what you would be interested to see in Kenya. According to the CIA estimates for this country, for this country explicitly take into account the effects of the mortality because of AIDS. This can result in the lower life in lower life expectancy, higher infant mortality and death rates, lower population and growth rates, and changes in the distribution of population by age and sex than would otherwise be expected. So the HIV and AIDS epidemic, we know about that. Kenya, officially the Republic of Kenya, Swahili, Jamhuri ya Kenya, is a country in East Africa. A member of the Commonwealth with a population of more than 4.6 million in the 2019 census. Kenya is the 28th most populous country in the world and 7th most populous in Africa. Kenya's capital and largest city, Nairobi, while its oldest and second largest city, which until 1907 was also Kenya's first capital city, is the coastal city of Mombasa, which includes Mombasa Island in the Indian Ocean and the surrounding mainland. Kisumu is the third largest city and also an island, an inland port in the Winam Gulf, which along with its numerous bays and human settlements is one of the most important maritime transport, fishing, farming, commercial history and tourism hubs on Lake Victoria. As of 2020, Kenya is the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa after Nigeria and South Africa, and hosts the United Nations, UNEP, and UN Habitat headquarters in Africa. Kenya is bordered by South Sudan to the northwest, Ethiopia to the north, Somalia to the east, Uganda to the west, Tanzania to the south, and the Indian Ocean to the southeast. Kenya in World War II sent soldiers to fight in the British Army when the British Empire declared war on Nazi Germany in 1939 and remained an important asset for the Allies until the end of the war in 1945. Kenya got its independence in 1962 and signed an agreement with Britain in 1964, which established the Batok, a permanent British Army training unit in Nanyuki, with as two support units in Nairobi. Kenya's geographical climate and population vary widely, ranging from cold, snow-capped mountain tops, Britain, Batian, Nelion, and Point Lenana on Mount Kenya, with vast surrounding forests, wildlife, and fertile agricultural regions, to temperate climates in western and Rift Valley counties, and further on to dry, less fertile and semi-arid areas and absolute deserts like Chalbi Desert and Nyeri deserts. Kenya's earliest inhabitants were hunter-gatherers like the present-day Adza people. According to archaeological dating of associated artifacts and skeletal material, Cushitic speakers first settled in Kenya's lowlands between 3,200 and 1,300 BC, a phase known as the lowland savanna pastoral Nilotic. Nilotic-speaking pastoralists, ancestors of Kenya's Nilotic speakers, began migrating from present-day South Sudan into Kenya around 500 BC. The history is quite similar to the one of Uganda in terms of immigration, the peopling of East Africa, the Bantu and all the other groups, the Nilotics and all the other ethnic groups. So the Bantu people settled at the coast and the interior between 250 BC and 500 BC AD. European contact began in 1500 AD with the Portuguese Empire, and effective colonization of Kenya began in the 19th century during the European exploration of the interior. Modern-day Kenya emerged from a protectorate established by the British Empire in 1895 and subsequent Kenya colony, which began in the 1920s. Numerous disputes between the UK and the colony led to the Mau Mau Rebellion, which began in 1952, and the Declaration of Independence in 1963. After independence, Kenya remained a member of the Commonwealth of Nations. The current constitution was adopted in 2010 and replaced the 1963 Independence Constitution. Kenya is the presidential representative democratic republic in which elected officials represent the people, and the president is the head of state and government, similar to what you find in Uganda and the rest of East, perhaps also the rest of Africa. Kenya is a member of United Nations, Commonwealth of Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, COMESA, International Criminal Court, as well as other international organizations. With the GNI of 1,840, Kenya is a lower middle income economy. Kenya's economy is the largest in Eastern and Central Africa, with Nairobi serving as a major regional commercial hub. Agriculture is the largest sector. Tea and coffee are traditional cash crops, while fresh flowers are a fast-growing export. Impressive statistics, so much wealth in practice in terms of Africa, East Africa, but also potential. One of the richest continent in Africa, countries in Africa, being Kenya, and the idea of extremely poor people impacted most of all, extremely impacted by the cost of living crisis, is a very bad documenting of the country, and that is a story across Africa, not just in Kenya or East Africa, but across Africa, and in many ways also across the world, because of capitalism, like I said previously. So we need to get our people out of poverty in Kenya and also in Africa and across the globe, because we are a people of the world. We are globalized countries. The continents of the world are coming together to form a global country of the world, and we don't want to see incidents such as the cost of living crisis, because the cost of living crisis is caused by poverty, and poverty is caused by a defaulting of the economy to keep the majority of people poor, and also concentrating wealth in the hand of the few and not taking this wealth away from the hand of the many. This is the point. I will repeat over it again. The service industry is also a major economic driver, particularly tourism. Kenya is a member of the East African Community Trade Bloc, though some international trade organizations categorize it as part of a greater horn of Africa. Africa is Kenya's largest export market, followed by the European Union. That's interesting. Let's talk of etymology. The Republic of Kenya is named after Mount Kenya. The earliest recorded version of the modern name was written by German explorer Johann Ludwig Kraft in the 19th century. So the creative Europeans named Kenya. Same happening in Africa, because at that time Africa was seen by the Europeans as the extension of their territories, which indirectly still today is the case through the funding mechanism of Africa via foreign aid through the World Bank and IMF, and the conditionalities which actually impact adversely often to affect adversely the many of the world, keeping them poor, and by dictating to African countries to focus resources on capital and infrastructure, which is a good thing in terms of wealth creation. But if this growth and also wealth factors, their effects are not distributed equitably to remove at least the majority of the population of Africa, of Kenya, of East Africa out of poverty, then it is a disservice to not only Kenya and East Africa and Africa, but also the global community. This should change by actually revisiting our cultural literacy to improve it, to start valuing humanity over and above any other thing, including wealth. It doesn't matter how important wealth is. It doesn't matter how the environment is important. Humanity, the life of humanity comes first. And that's the meaning or the context of what I refer to as the cultural economy, which we all, rich and poor, Africa, black or white, Europeans, whoever you are in the world, we are to learn our culture, our cultural formatting, our cultural valuation, to give precedence to the people of the world in order to start the peace process in its in a more organic context. And we need to do that now to get the rest of the population out of poverty, even if they are not necessarily rich. This will be a major achievement of the global community, which thing now they appear not to be doing very well. So the earliest recorded version of the modern name was written by a German explorer, Johann Ludwig Kraft, in the 19th century, like I said, while traveling with a Kamba caravan.